mess up that luggage and I will mess up you. Yes, I'm talking to you, dragging my suitcase along the floor. If my suitcase gets scuffed before I even get upstairs, you are the one who's going to be reupholstering it. Yes, with your backside. Hello. Hello. How are you? I'm just getting ready to go upstairs. See, butterflies. It's spring. It's spring. I'm going upstairs to do my other job. Up top side. But I thought I would come and do this video before I go upstairs and have to wear the clothes my mother wants me to wear. Anyway, we have the companion to the last play that we did. And I know I probably should have done this one first, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to happen that way. So quit your complaining. So we are doing this time John Gay's The Beggar's Opera, because we did Bertolt Brecht's The Threepenny Opera. They're not exactly the same, but they are the same in certain places. So anyway, we'll get to that. Meanwhile, remember, there's the shop, blah, 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 and there are books, and there's the other shop, and that's how you support us, blah, 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 blah. And like, comment, subscribe, share, because if you don't, I'll jump out from under your bed and scare you witless at night. So that is all of that stuff done. And we are looking at John Gay's The Beggar's Opera. Now, we didn't have the same issues with this one as we had with the last one. I didn't think we'd strike gold twice. This one didn't upset anybody. It's fairly funny. So, The Beggar's Opera comes from the same time as our friend Mr. Swift. Seriously, you didn't think satirists were going upstairs, did you? Oh no, we have lots of comedians down here. Lots of comedians. They do not have a great deal of a sense of humour upstairs. I mean, the comedians usually start out up there and then they come down here because they offend people. Especially the satirists. The satirists, like, they're 5 minutes and boom, back down here. And it's like, hello. You'll have more fun down here with us anyway. You're supposed to be down here, everyone down here. But anyway, so it's by John Gay, who is a contemporary of our good friend Mr. Swift and Mr. Pope. And this is very much the same story as the Threepenny Opera. So I'm not going to go through the entire plot because it really is the same sort of thing. The same characters are there, but there are a few changes. I'll talk about what the changes are. So again, likewise, this one opens with Mr. Peachum. Actually, it opens with the beggar and a patron that he is conversing with about the work. That's why it's called The Beggar's Opera. This is a work written by a beggar, the author, John Gay. And they're talking about what this work is and what they've put in because this is stylish and this is fashionable. And then we start with Mr. Peachum. Now, Mr. Peachum in this one is not running beggars as he is in the Threepenny Opera. In this one, Mr. Peachum is a underworld figure who is running thieves, and he either runs a thief, and if the thief ceases to be any use to him, he will inform on him and collect the bounty on the thief. So he is a very, very duplicitous individual. He runs a shop where he sells back all the things that were stolen, often to the same the person who it was stolen from. A lot of these characters are also based on real people. One of his men is Captain Macheath. Now, this is another difference, is although in the Threepenny opera, Mac the Knife is considered to have had a military history, Captain Macheath actually does clearly have a military history. He's still wearing his red coat. He's a highwayman, and he's a little bit different to the other characters. He's a bit more genteel, which makes sense because if he was actually a captain, and the British Army did have a tendency to sort of just stick their people on half pay, and veterans did end up thieves and highwaymen at times. So him being an actual captain in the army, or a former captain in the army, but keeping that title, is probably not all that unusual. But Captain Macheath, because he is called the captain, has his red coat, and he's a bit genteel. Now, if he was an officer in the army, that makes sense that he's a bit more genteel. He's like the fourth son of a fourth son, which is how you end up in the army. There's no estate to inherit, so you've got to make a living somehow, and generally the family would buy them an officership in the army. So he looks like he's somebody who is a bit more from higher up, who has sunk down, rather than just someone who comes from this underworld. Now, he has seduced, I won't say he has fallen in love, because you'll see, but he has seduced Peacham's daughter, Polly, and married her. Now, Peacham is really angry about this because Peacham and his wife have brought Polly up to be a prostitute, and if she's married, she's not going to be worth as much as unmarried in terms of having the men after her. But if she were a widow, all would be forgiven, and so she is supposed to peach or inform on her new husband, which she does not want to do. And part of the reason also that the Peachams, they're not even married, that her mother and father want her to peach on Macheath, is because they are afraid that he will do the same to them to get their money. So this is a very backstabby sort of world. This is slightly different from Bertolt Brecht, where it's more about mercantile and bourgeoisie and appearance of respectability. These guys are not respectable at all, and they're not even really pretending to be. It's about power and leverage. So she doesn't want to, peach on her new husband. She sees Mac, warns him that he's in danger. He promises to go. Again, he gets caught with Jenny Jones in the brothel, just like in the other one. Gets arrested, just like in the other one. Has Lucy, the jailer's daughter, seduce and cheat, lies and cons her into helping him escape, just like in the other one. There is no character like the sergeant in this play. The jailer, of course, is as corrupt as anyone else, and he's in for the reward with Mr. Peacham. They've been working together, and they're also planning to heist the coronation at the end. That's at the end of the play. Macheath again is caught at the brothel, just like in the other one, comes back, just like in the other one. Polly and Lucy again fight. Lucy in this one actually attempts to poison Polly, but doesn't succeed, which she doesn't in Brecht. That isn't in the Brecht. So Macheath has two women, both claiming to be his wife. And then 4 more with children are brought into the prison. There's no way of being saved. And he's like, oh, for crying out loud, it's just better to be hanged at this point. Because Macheath is based on a real highwayman and serial bigamist. Because Macheath, he has 2 vices. I think you've worked out what one of those vices are. Women and cards. So he's constantly broke, and therefore constantly having to hold people up because he's constantly losing his money at cards, and he's constantly losing his money to women and indulging himself in that. So he is an incredibly intemperate person. Macheath is taken to the gallows, and at the very end we have the beggar and the patron come in and say, well, this is a bit of a downer. What's the point of this? Oh, well, to show that vice is corrupted. I was like, a bit of a downer. How about a repeal would be good? And a repeal is sent, Deus ex machina, like to free Macheath, who finally decides, well, before any more wives turn up, I'm going to take Polly and we're going to be off. And that's it. That's the Beggar's Opera. It is pretty slim on the ground when it comes to plot. And Macheath keeps doing stupid things over and over and over again. So what is this? Well, the Beggar's Opera is a satire of the Italian opera, which had come into England, particularly at this time. It was particularly popular. The big popular composer was Handel, and he came to England because the Georges brought him. George I brought him to England as, court composer, because if I've got to go to England, well, then let's bring Handel along. Because opera is, at this point, is still new-ish, but it's new enough, it's old enough that it has really solid conventions. But this is Baroque opera. There's like really early opera like Monteverdi, the early Monteverdi. Think L'Orfeo or Incoronation d'Epopea, which is really, really good, by the way. Not if my opera company has anything to do with it, but whenever I'm topside, I do try to catch some operas whenever I can, because I do find them really interesting. It's just that I've had better tunes out of the Harpies. I've had better tunes out of the Harpies than my current opera company. Honestly, Father Uncle Zeus, if you could see your way to sending me a decent opera company, that would be great. I don't care how vile they are. Please, it's my birthday soon. Anyway. But in comparison to now, opera, it was still fairly new. And the big English composer of a slightly earlier period, I think he was dead by this point, it was Purcell. And Purcell operas are quite different to what will become very popular in the 18th century, which is Handel, the big Baroque stuff. Handel, I quite like Handel. I quite like Vivaldi. I've never really got into Bach. Bach spends way too much time praising the usurper upstairs than writing things in honor of us. because that is one of the things about this opera. Opera seria, which is what this is known as, Baroque opera is opera seria, generally has two different types of topics. Heroes, as in like Julius Caesar in Egypto, Julius Caesar, Nero and Poppaea, they're more villains. That's really good, that end of that. Oh, just when their voices twine around each other. Oh, shivers. Anyway, so they're like that. Big heroic creatures or people from stories or history, or the gods. So Semele is an opera, and divine creatures populate Baroque opera. So, and this will continue until who? Until Amadeus turns up at the end of the century, and you get stories that are more ordinary. They're not really ordinary. They're, lords and servants and whatnot, but mostly high-born people. In operas, not the gods, not the heroes of old, but more ordinary people. Mostly that's because the castrati went out of favour, and you really can't have gods and heroes without castrati. I don't know exactly why they felt that was a good idea to praise us, but praise is praise, praise is praise. I'm not going to diss their attempts at praise. See, Polly and Dionysus did such a great job at creating this, inspiring the creation of this stuff. I mean, it's like, it's over the top. It's impossibly big. So, considering that is the backdrop to the Beggar's opera, John Gay, looking at this big imported Italian thing by these big German kings, and this big German composer, there is this sort of sense of, hey, we're England, we don't do this, so let's mock it. The play itself is full of songs, but they're not full score songs. There isn't recitatives. It's not a full score. It's a pastiche score that takes little bits and pieces, some from the Italian opera, some from other places, but sound melodies that other people that people in the audience would understand, and undercuts them by having these melodies that are supposed to be in the mouths of gods and heroes in the mouths of prostitutes and thieves. So you take this highly elevated form and you drag it down into the gutter. So this is part of the reason why the plot of this play is so impossibly stupid, why the plot of the play is so simple, why the characters have zero development, because in an opera the plot is impossibly stupid. The characters have zero development. Nobody learns from anything, so they keep repeating the same problems twice, and then bam, Caesar walks out of the ocean. That is, honestly, that is the best moment in Julius Caesar in Egypto, which I'm not sure had been written yet. But my favourite part is when all hope is lost and everyone thinks that the baddies are going to win. Caesar walks out of the ocean. Oh, so good. It's so good. It's that sort of thing that is one of the big parts of Baroque opera. You always get this deus ex machina. The hero arrives just in time, or the pardon arrives just in time. The squabbling women was was a reference to a pair of Italian singers who had come over, two women who were seen as great rivals. It was a big beat up because, of course, it was a big beat up, but because that sells tickets. But having these two Italian divas, a lot of the things that people think about opera are actually really, really old. Tenors or leading men are always really stupid. The great Met joke about the magic mirror, that if you lie, will pull you in and you disappear. When the tenor stands in front of it, I think, boom, gone. Yes, that is a really old trope. Of course, you didn't necessarily have tenors in that role until the 19th century, but still, leading men being idiots, old trope. Very old trope. So a lot of these things are still recognizable if you realize this is parodying the opera, the Italian opera. Of course, Handel then, aside from doing these great pieces of divine and heroic content, of course, once the taste changes, he, like Bach, abandoned us for the usurpers upstairs. We are still looking after their problem. Down in Tartarus with grandfather, we are still looking after the usurper upstairs' problem. Wouldn't feel too good about it if we went on strike there, would they? No. Would not indeed. Would not feel too good about it if I chose. Maybe I won't come up and visit my mother. Okay, I even to spite them, I kind of have to go and visit my mother. Yeah. It's more than my piece is worth to diss my smother. She'll come down. I don't want her here. I do not want house visits from my smother. I'll go. She's so codependent. She is so codependent, so gaslighty. Honestly, the mother from hell. If she didn't have a daughter there. Anyway, so the Beggar's Opera is really playing with opera tropes. The Beggar's Opera was also insanely popular. Like, absolutely insanely popular. It made John Gay the equivalent of £400,000 in today's money. So we are talking insane popularity for this opera. And I would say part of that is because it is parodying this high art that the elites like, but that has no relation to the ordinary people. And it's the ordinary people who flock to the Beggar's Opera. And the Beggar's Opera has had this massive influence because it's influenced musical theatre. These tropes that are originally from the opera house end up in the more modern musical theatre world. These ideas of a simplistic plot that you break up with songs and that you have diegetic songs are things that didn't really exist. The idea of using ordinary people didn't really exist in theatre, not in this kind of theatre. And so without the Beggar's Opera, you really don't get the modern musicals. I'm not a modern musical person. I like opera. Why? Because opera is big and noisy and just, you don't need to listen to what the people are saying. It's all in some other language. I don't need to know that. And the plots are stupid anyway. But you get this incredibly influential piece. No Beggar's opera, no Threepenny opera. No Threepenny opera, no torturing modern Germans down here with the Milwaukee Family Players. Anyway, so I thought in order to keep on a musical theme for our next play, we would do Amadeus. To keep on this musical theme, since we've done like 3, that'll be 3 in a row. I don't think Amadeus actually has singing in it, but it's definitely on a musical theme. So that's what we'll be doing next time. And I have been informed that many mortals are woefully ill-informed about the classics. I have been informed about this, and I cannot stand by while the great works of my own people are left to rot and decay. Especially since they were wonderful worshippers of me. You guys, rubbish worshippers. You need to get better at this. But these great worshippers, their great works are in decline. People don't know them. So, as an act of magnanimity, I, in an idea entirely my own, will give you a primer on what are the great ancient works that you really must know. So that too will be coming up. I'm not sure which one I'll do first. Probably the second. But anyway, that will be coming up at some point. I have to go up topside for spring. And until we meet again, bye-bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.